Well, friends, our next guest apparently never sleeps due to all the projects he's involved with. He is a talented singer, piano composer, actor, and a licensed psychotherapist who had his own private practice for 14 years. However, he's probably best known for being the executive producer and host of the nationally broadcasted and syndicated radio show, James Miller Lifeology. From sunny Miami, Florida, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to Tell Us a Good Story, Mr. James Miller.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. When you said that, I'm like, who is this person? I want to meet him. He sounds amazing.
This person is awesome.
I want to meet this man.
That's funny.
Yes, well, I'm jealous where he's at in Miami, Florida, versus
Yes.
it being...
I'm literally on the ocean. I'm not going to lie. Don't mean to rub it in. Columbus, Ohio is a little different than winter in Miami. So
Yes.
there's that.
Well, the thing is, you can understand how we feel because you lived here for a
Yes.
while. So you
Yes.
understand how we're feeling in December in Columbus.
He's laughing.
Well, did you know though? I don't think you knew this. I actually grew up in rural Canada. So when I was 4 years old, my parents moved to Canada. They had a very rustic fishing resort. So you had a flying by float plane. We had a generator that was on for maybe 4 hours a day. There were like moose and bear running through our yard all the time. So I know what cold is. Like 54 below zero, like the wind chill. Very common up there. You bump your hand against something, it feels like it's going to crumble apart. So yes, it's a huge juxtaposition, a huge change from Western Ontario to sunny Florida.
Whoa. I want to talk about
I
this.
was gonna say, were you just growing up and you're like, okay, when I grow up, I am not living here. I am going somewhere sunny. Is that kind of how that worked, James?
Well, you know, it's so funny because even when I was an undergrad and even actually growing all the way up through school, I had to wear uniforms and ties. And they're like, we're going to prepare you for the world. I am literally in tank tops and t-shirts all the time. I'm like, yeah, I really prepared me. But no, it's funny. I like the cold for a couple of days, especially for the holidays. So now I'm not going to lie, I'm super embarrassed, but it was like 72 the other day. I'm like, I'm so cold. And I have my jacket on, and I would make fun of people like that all the time. And as I hear myself say that, I'm like, all right, James, calm it down. But I'm one of those people now. In fact, I'm wearing a long sleeve shirt today, which is not like me. So,
So you were in Canada and
Yes.
you would just look out your window and there'd be like moose
Oh my
walking
gosh.
around or bears, or is that really
Yeah.
what your life was like?
yeah. So I don't know if you've ever seen a moose in real life. They are, oh my God, they're like 15 feet tall easily. And that's usually at the haunch. I mean, they're humongous. And then there's see like the little moose. I don't know what they're called, mooselings, but you would see them. Like the one time we were on a pontoon boat and there was a little one that couldn't get out because there were rocks there. So it was trying to get out. The mom was able to, and you would see her run back and forth trying to get our attention. But my dad and I we took a paddle and we were able to lift it up and get it out, and then it ran away. But yeah, you would see it all the time. You see bear go through the lakes. We'd see them in the backyard all the time, and there's like scratch marks in our back door because they were trying to get in. You'd see bald eagles come flying down and grab fish out of the water. And then so my job as a kid on this fishing resort, when I say resort, let's be honest, there was no electricity, so it wasn't like a resort. It was a really rustic place, so let's be honest. But so I had to take the fish innards after they were cleaned, and I would have to take them and put them out on the rocks. And then the eagles would come down, or the big turkey buzzards. Have you seen those big things?
Yes.
They would come down and eat it, and then the eagles would come down. One time, I was like, oh, this is going to be amazing. I was like focusing more on the eagles, and I slipped and fell, and all the fish innards went all over me. And that was the last time I ever did that. Ever. I'm like, I will not be doing this again. So yeah, that's how I grew up. And then, so was it five months of the year I was there. And then the other 7 months I was in the States. And since my parents were ministers, we traveled around all around the US. And so but my permanent address was Canada, and I lived in so many different states. I always tell people I was in the witness protection program because that seems better than saying, oh, we just moved around because we moved around. So that's how I grew up. So I'd come back to the United States, wear my MC Hammer pants, thinking that was really cool, and it was not. And I just didn't have a lot of friends in the States. So there's that.
So when his parents would say, hey, go outside and play, that meant something completely different than you and I telling our kids to go outside and play, because in his backyard is a bear or a moose or whatever.
Did you have like any like scary interactions like with a bear or anything? Okay, let's say about that.
So what had happened was, and I was a kid, so we had to do like the minnows. I had to go get the minnows for the people who fish. So we had all these minnow traps, all these different places. So I was out I was like maybe, I don't know, 8 or 9 years old. And I know how that sounds being that young, but I had my little boat, outboard motor, and I'd go out and get the minnows. And one time I was getting the minnows, and all of a sudden, probably from here, well, you can't see, from probably maybe 15 feet away, a bear comes out and I'm just a little kid with the minnows, and I just take off running, and it's coming at me. And it wasn't, I mean, it was more interested in the food than it was me, because although black bears are my history, I'm not a zoologist, but black bears are much more, I don't say aggressive, but they're much more, they don't mind chasing you. So they would go after you. And so that was a really scary time for me. Of course, a little 8-year-old boy, I'm having to fend for his life, run as fast as I could, jump in the boat. And of course, just like in the movies, the boat wouldn't start. Finally started, got it out. Yeah. And so I'm like, of course it wouldn't start. I mean, why would it start? That's just how every bad movie is ever made. So I'm like, this must be a movie. but I had quite a few of those. It was a lot of fun when I think about it. Just different from everybody else's childhood.
Yeah, that does sound fun, James.
I know, right? That's super fun. I would do it again.
When you said, the bear was more interested in the food, I'm like, you are the food.
I was the food. I know, exactly. Yeah. But there were times when I would just be out. Sometimes I would have one of my cousins came out for like a month or two. But yeah, it was just usually just me. And then when the guests would come in, they were just there for a few days, and once again, a child would come or someone my age, but I didn't know them. But for me, it was just a very different life. I was reading encyclopedias and dictionaries, and I was just so much fun for me. And but the other cool thing was I would go on my boat and I would see. So the Ware Lakes we were on the end of one lake, but it was really long, and then it would evolve or it would segment to all these different lakes as well. And then if you wanted to go to other lakes, you have to portage for the French would say. You have to pick up your boat and you have to carry it across to the next lake. So I would just go, just ride around all day and just find just different little islands that I could explore. And so even to this day now, if I see a really cool, well, I have to be careful now, but if I see like a big hill somewhere, I'll just park my car, run up, see what's up there, and then come back down, because that's kind of how I grew up. So it was a very solitary childhood when I was in Canada, and then the States. Of course, I didn't really acclimate, but it was just different. Like if I play any Trivial Pursuit, I got nothing on the 80s. I got nothing at all. I mean, I know some things, but you ask me about literature or about any words in the dictionary, and I'm like, well, the epidemiology of this, and I can tell you everything. And so it was just, like I said, it was a cool childhood, and I love it. It's very different than a lot of other people, but I'm probably more of a city boy now when people see me. Yeah, but I mean, I can still rough it if I needed to. Well, but I don't want to.
Great. We talk about having a different childhood than most people. You've had an adulthood that is different than most people, right? So when we're reading about you, James, I was telling Steph, there's so many things we could ask him for stories about, such as, the one was acting, right? So you have been performing since you 3 years old, right?
Yeah.
And you became an actor. You filmed a movie over in Spain, right?
In España.
What is it like being an actor, going through auditions, trying to maybe learn a new language? How does that work? Do you have any good stories from that experience, James?
Oh, I have many stories. Like I remember I was performing on stage, and I missed my cue, and I was trying to run on stage really fast, and I tripped and fell and came flying on stage. I mean, you can't come back from that. So of course I stood up, everyone laughed, and I gave a little bow, the show must go on, and then I did my really important line. But I have a lot of things. I mean, it's funny, but I didn't go by James at that time. I was, my name was Sebastian de Vega. I don't know why. It was really cool name, but it wasn't cool because I'm only half Spanish. People don't realize that. Like with a name like James Miller, people don't know that I speak Spanish. So, so Sebastian de Vega was my name, and I did a lot of MTV commercials. I did actually a lot of stuff for. There was back in the day when the Bible, it's called the Book, which is obviously the Bible, but that was when they were recirculating it in a way for a whole new generation, if you will. So I did a lot of campaigns with them. In fact, a lot of it was on MTV as well. So it's cool. I did a lot of things. So the El Cerrero Fascista is the name of the movie I was in. It's called The Fascist Locksmith, and I was an American person over in Spain. It was a silly indie film. It was fun, but yeah, it was really cool to be on set. I enjoyed a lot. There was one time I was in fact, how it links together when I was a boy in Canada. I was in this TV series called The Untold Stories of the Navy SEALs. So I was in the Panama episode. And so here I am, at 4 a.m. I'm one of my characters, the Panamanian flight control operator. So here I am speaking in Spanish, and I'm talking. I'm like, I don't remember my lines, but the Americans are coming. Here they are. And I'm looking at the radar. There's a blank screen, of course. They CGI'd on top of it. But it was funny because you did all this, and it was just really cool to be that. They had the blowing things up. The squibs are flying everywhere, shooting things off, and they needed one of the additional Navy SEALs wasn't there. So they're like, James, will you fill in for this? I'm like, of course. So here I'm a Navy SEAL, and it's like 3 a.m. They blew up a helicopter next to us. But it was funny because I had to, they didn't have the person to drive the Zodiacs, which are the floating boats, you know?
Okay.
So, but what they did, people clearly don't know how to drive these boats, but they had me the opposite direction from the way you're supposed to go. And I'm like, it's like riding with a different hand. And so I was like, okay, so I had to flip this around, and the other people kind of knew what they were doing. So here I am. I'm like, yeah, I could do this easily. But when they had me do it with my opposite hand, I was like, oh crap. And so I was like, oh. So, but anyway, if you see that at the very end, there are 3 Zodiacs. I'm the last Zodiac that's zigzagging back and forth. I'm
going
kidding.
in circles.
I was in line.
I know, going in circles.
I'm like, I swear I know how to do this. But it's been really cool. I mean, I enjoyed it. I mean, I have a lot of stories, but that was a really fun one until my agent ran off with all my money. So I never got paid for that one, but all is well. But it's really cool. I can see it on Netflix, or I don't know if they still have it there, but that's when you can actually rent the DVDs. I don't know if Netflix still does that, but yeah, but I could rent it and I would watch it. And I took a side-by-side still on my TV of myself. I'm like, yeah, a lot has changed. It was just neat. I mean, yeah, we've all done things, and I enjoy it. You know, the TV thing that I have coming up now has been really cool. My new TV show. But yeah, I enjoy it. So for me to go from when I was younger to do a lot of the acting on stage, performing. I mean, I performed in front of thousands and thousands of people, even as a little boy. I think the most I did was 55,000 people. And in fact, I was going to send you a little video clip of me. I was doing a telethon. Oh, I'm not going to now. When I looked at it, I was like, so I'm like 13 years old. I was a chubby little boy. So here I am singing my heart's content. And I'm, you know, because when you're doing a live set, you have to look at, so every camera, I forgot what they're called. It's the red eye, but it's I remember the lights are called. Anyway, but the director will direct you to which camera to look, and you know which camera to look because there's a red light on there. So you can see me as a little boy as I'm singing, and he's directing me, and I'm singing away. It was my big old glasses, my big old afro, my big chubby belly. It was just so funny to watch. So I love going back and seeing those things because who I was, I mean, it's still who I am, but it's just interesting to see the iterations of how we all evolve as we get older. So it's just been nice. And then I took the easy way out and I went to graduate school. Excuse me. I went to Regent University. In fact, which is Regent University is connected to CBN, 700 Club
in Norfolk, Virginia.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, in Virginia Beach. Yeah, right next to each other. So I used to work in the international department, and I would translate the documents for all the people there. And then I'd worked with them for a couple different on some of their sets for different things. There was one show, I can't remember what it's called. Q3 something squared, M squared. It was about music videos. So at the very beginning, so they hired me because I did a lot of martial arts. So I at the very beginning of it, how did it start out? Yeah, at the very beginning of it, I jump up and I spin around into a reverse flying spin kick. And so it's where you jump up and go backwards and your leg comes flying around. So I do that, and as they come down, it was really cool. They morphed me into a ballerina. So there was a whole montage of all the different people. At the very end, you see me come running and come flying up, and I do a side kick just before I had to stop just before I hit the camera, and I was like, oh my God, I'm going to break this camera. Thankfully, I did not. But it was cool because I hired me to teach the other people how to do Tai Chi and other things, which was a lot of fun. So I was more of a consultant on that particular one. But it was neat to see all the different things that I was able to do or am doing. And so I just really enjoyed it.
So did you get a chance to work then with Pat Robertson while you're there at CBN?
I did not. Funny thing is, I would see him in the hallway. He is actually a lot taller than I thought.
Oh,
he was like 6'1" or 6'2". I'm 5'10", so but I would see him from a distance, and I was for some reason I thought he was just shorter, and I was like, wow, you're actually taller than I thought. But no, I would see him all the time. I would see Gordon all the time, his son, and I got to meet all the. I was on set a lot, but I didn't do anything for them. Now, when they do a lot of the reenactments, I would do some of the reenactments. I don't remember who. I totally forgot about that one. I don't remember what reenactment it was for, but I was someone who was in some Latin guy who was locked in a prison, got out, was on a prison gang. Oh my God, I totally forgot about that. And then I had to break free from that. So that was a fun little reenactment. I didn't have to speak. I mean, I just mouth the words, but it was pretty cool to do reenactments like that. I actually totally forgot about that. I did quite a few of those actually, now that I think about it, but those were fun. Those were fun to do. And that I was doing that while I was going to graduate school, because I was going to go to either the new school or I was going to go to an LA directing school, or be a film school out in LA, but I chose to go to graduate school for psychology. And then now I'm getting back to all of my entertainment for my music, my everything else. So it's kind of all culminating into, I'm able to use it all right now again, which I really am grateful for. Very honored by the opportunities that I keep being given.
Okay. Any crazy audition stories?
As an actor?
Yes.
I had an audition for Taco Bell. And it was,
Really?
no, it wasn't Taco, was it? Yeah, it was Taco Bell. It was Taco Bell. It was, I'm not going to lie. Sorry, Taco Bell, but love you. But it was such a bad concept. So here I am. I had to, I'm sorry, I should not say that. Taco Bell's wonderful. I love their Diablo sauce. I'll tell you that. But anyway, so I had to pretend I was playing an air guitar. There was no direction to it, but they said, play it as crazy as you can play it. So here I'm playing this crazy air guitar, like playing it as if I was, you know, the best guitar player in the world. And the director and the casting agent, they just stared at me like, thank you. And I was like, I literally just made a fool of myself. And this is all I got. I didn't even get a call back on that. I'm like, I rocked that air guitar and I got nothing. Now I saw the commercial later and I was like, oh, thank God. Cause it was just a different commercial than I expected it to be. So.
James is like, where's the standing ovation at here? Folks?
I know. And I was like,
best air guitar
I'm
ever.
not lying. I was amazing. I'm not going to lie.
People just don't appreciate the talent in that commercial.
But once again, when I saw it, I was like, oh, thank you, Jesus. And I was not in the commercial because it was not my style of commercials that I wanted to be a part of. So it worked out well. All is well.
That's funny. So where were you at when you were performing in front of 55,000 people then, James?
So when we were back in the States, I did a lot of, so my primary instrument is my voice. And well, not only for singing, but I talk all the time. And so for me, I would be in all these different church arenas singing, pretty much everywhere. I mean, I've traveled, there would be like a lot of different concerts, like Christian concerts here and there. Like I was one I can think of. Oh my gosh, it was so funny. The 3/4 bust shot they had for me, big ol' afro. We had my one curl down that I would work till it was just perfect. But that was in Wisconsin, and I was one of the headliners back then. So I don't want to say I was big, but a lot of people knew me in a lot of places, and so it was nice. It was different because they knew me for my singing. And people know me for different things. I mean, we all known for something, but now people know me in different ways. But back then, wherever I would go, like, oh, I was known as Jimmy Miller back then. Don't ever call me that. But so for me, I was I was known as that, and I sang all over the U.S.
Okay, so Steph, so far during this conversation, he's talked about being a singer, being a
minnow hunter,
a psychotherapist, an actor. He's also been a professional speaker and a keynote speaker. And I think you have a good story that you could share with us about that. Is that right, James?
I do, yes. Okay, yeah. So I do this is hysterical. All right, so I as a keynote speaker, of course, I'm in person, but there was one, I won't say what it is because I don't want to besmirch the great stuff, the great topics that I talked about. But there was one I love to tell the story because I do not take myself seriously at all. If I trip and fall, I'm the one that laughs, the first laugh. And that's happened many times. But so this one time I was a keynote speaker for a really big event and like really influential people. So here I am. It was I don't want to say the time because I don't want to give too much information, but it was later in the evening. And 2 hours before that, I'd eaten a lot of food and I had felt really bloated. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to take a Lasix. So a Lasix is a diuretic that is prescribed, of course. And so I was like, that's going to be good. I'm like, I have a photo shoot the next day. I'm like, amazing. And so of course, everyone take your medication as prescribed by a licensed person. So here I am. I went ahead and I took it and it was 100 milligrams. And I could have swore God was like, James, don't take it. I'm like, why? I'm like, I'll be fine.
I'm a licensed professional here.
I know, right? I know everything clearly. I mean, I'm the keynote speaker, so everybody clearly I know what I'm talking about. 2 minutes before it starts, all of a sudden I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to go to the bathroom. So I ran to the bathroom, came back, all polished, and thankfully this was a video one like this because it was during COVID. And
so this is recent. This isn't when he's 13 years old.
Oh, I can't say. That's what makes it worse. So here I'm like, I know the time because I went back and looked at the time tab. 8:24. All of a sudden I'm talking and it just hits me. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Have you ever been in a car and you have to go to the bathroom so bad and you'll really run over anybody because you just have to go to the bathroom?
Never.
So picture that times 1,000. So here I am. I'm like, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? And so all of a sudden I was like, okay, well, I can just run to the bathroom. But I was like, well, no, I can't. I'm like in the middle of a conversation and they're asking me questions and it was a really good conversation. So I was like, the show must go on. So I just was like, why not? So here I am talking, talking away about ways you can really enhance your life. And all of a sudden it just went for like a good 3 minutes. And I'm sorry to be vulgar, but that's real life. And then I'm like, oh, thank God I'm done. 15 minutes later, hit me again. And I was like, oh my gosh. And so just can't even. So here I am. I don't want to say I can't say too much. But when I was talking, there's a part where you see me talking, and it was during the second time, and you see me look down because I'm like, I just bought a brand new rug. Where is my dog? Am I peeing all over him? And I was like, what? And I was literally freaking out. But once again, the show must go on. You'll never know, although you can hear a couple splashes here and there because that's how much it was. It was 100 milligrams. So once it was done, I was like, oh, thank you so much for letting me be a guest on your show. I'm so honored. And then as soon as we hung up, I was like, oh my gosh. And I was like, so grossed out. I didn't burn everything. I threw everything away. Thankfully, my rug was not affected. My dog was fine. But that was like, of course, James, of course, you should have listened to what you were told and you did not do it. So everyone, that's a life lesson. Do not take a diuretic before you have a speaking engagement because you will regret it many times.
100 milligrams, by the way.
Because I normally would take like 25 and I'm like, oh, I'll be fine. I have a photo shoot tomorrow. I need to look good. So
yeah,
vanity.
I look good for this photo shoot.
I know. So that's what
milligrams.
vanity does. So don't ever allow your vanity to make you wet yourself while you're speaking.
Did you re-watch the video from that Zoom call then? Okay. So when you go to relieve yourself, can you see a facial change in your response? Like
a split second. And I was like, when I went back and looked, all of a sudden, because I'm in so much panic, I can tell that I was in panic mode. And all of a sudden there was a moment of just relief for a second. And then I just kept talking, and it was so subtle. But of course, I sent it to my sisters and my mom. They're like, "We can tell" when I told them what happened. And then I was like, "Oh, it's trying to be so subtle." But if you didn't know, you wouldn't know. But it was a really it was a moment that I will never forget.
Well, honestly, let's be honest. We've all had that moment. Like the fact that you said the car ride, like you've all had that moment where you're like, people like, go. You're yelling at people just to, I don't care.
And the closer you get to where you go, you feel like it's just you're going to burst.
Yes.
It's bad.
Well, then you park the car and you're like, oh dear God, I don't think I can get out. Right? Yeah. You're just like, you don't even want to move until you're mentally like there. Oh, yes. It's awful.
James, I wish the end of your speech would have been, hey, thanks guys. And then you stood up to like walk out of the room and you could see your pants as you like walk away.
Oh my God.
That'd be like the final
my God.
scene.
That would... Have a blessed day.
Right, have a blessed day. God bless you all. Stand up.
Oh my God. That would be wrong. Oh my gosh. It was, yeah. So it was a moment. Yeah, it was a moment. So it's funny because not too long ago, I was a keynote speaker for an event in Dallas. And when I went up on stage, that's the first thing I thought of. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what if I have to go to the bathroom? And I was like, all right, James, you didn't take anything. You didn't drink anything. And I was like, this is ridiculous that I have to be worried about this as I'm speaking to all these people. And so thankfully, no accidents happened. Thank you all. Thank God. So,
that is fantastic.
I was traumatized.
Fantastic. So James, you have an audience that averages around 3.2 million listeners with radio or podcast videos, all of that. What's one of the more interesting guests then that you had that shared a funny story with you or something that just like blew your mind?
Funny. Well, I can tell you another funny thing that I did.
Please.
So do you know Elizabeth Vargas? She is amazing. She is the top Emmy Award winner, A&E reporter. She has a new show that just came out. She used to do it's 60 Minutes. She was a co-anchor on that and all the different news ones.
Yes.
Love her. Amazing. One of the most brilliant people I've ever met. So here she was on my show. We were on a different platform we were recording and she couldn't figure it out. And she's like, can we just use a different one? I'm like, sure, we'll use a different program. So actually with Zoom. And my other program, everything's just set up automatically to record. So here we are, we had a wonderful talk and we were just vibing in sync and we were really feeling it. And literally 30 seconds as I'm doing my outro, my call to action, I realized I didn't hit record. I'm like, oh my gosh. This is Elizabeth Vargas. Like, she is Elizabeth Vargas. And here I am, this little person. Hi, Elizabeth, be on my show. She's on my show. And so, you can't see it, of course, I didn't record it, but my face, I looked at the camera real fast and I could see myself and you can see my face just fall and I'm completely red. And I still finished the show and I was like, Elizabeth, I am so sorry. I did not hit record. And I literally just wanted to just crawl down in my chair. In fact, I have different chairs now, by the way, since I ruined the other ones. But I literally just wanted to fall down and just crawl under a rock. And I said, I am so sorry. And she was like, oh, it's fine. And she was, so I said, I'll talk to your publicist. We can reschedule for a different time, etc. And she's like, no, it's fine. We'll do it now. I was like, are you sure? She's like, yes, we will. So if you ever watch the video, if you go to my Instagram at jamesmiller@lifeology.com or James Miller Lifeology, or just go to my website and look at it at the very beginning of that. So here I'm introducing her. She's looking down at her phone and I know she's texting her agent. I don't know this, but I'm assuming I would do this. Texting her agent, this idiot did not even hit record. And I'm going to be late. So I will get back with you. So if you watch it, that's what she's doing. And then she's like, hi, James, it's so nice to be with you today. Obviously so polished. And I'm like, I would do the same thing. So
just turned it right on.
But I don't know if she knew she was on camera now. But it's funny because I say, we had a wonderful talk in the pre-call. And here I'm thinking, that was the full interview. Now we get to do it again. But I mean, that was an amateur move. I mean, whatever, it happens to everybody. I shouldn't say amateur. It was a mistake. I mean, you learn. Thankfully, she was so gracious. And so I was so humbled that she came on my show again and well, she repeated it. And it's funny for my TV show, my upcoming one. I was like, I'd love you to be a guest on my show. She's like, oh, okay. Well, I talked to my agent and I was like, oh, great. I'm like, it's going to be a different show than this one. But anyway, that was hysterical.
His email, his phone's blocked by his agent. He's not getting through it all. James, we did that same exact thing, like, 2 months ago? Mm-hmm. And it was with an award-winning news anchor here.
Oh, yeah. I heard it. Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. And so what you heard was the second conversation because...
yeah, that's hysterical.
And we tried to not ask the same things, which we didn't.
Yeah.
Which was nice. But, James, we hit record at the end and then it says, okay, now you're recording on Zoom. I'm like, oh dear God, did that just happen?
Not good.
So we recorded our audio, our video, did not record her as the guest. So needless to say, this sweet, wonderful woman that you see right here, she may have raised her voice to me, James, and we had words.
We had words.
Didn't kind words, of course.
Yes. A passionate discussion, James.
Passionate. I love passion. Honestly, though, and again, I've come to your defense. Zoom completely changed how they did
setting
things.
On ours. Yes,
they did. So it really wasn't your fault. You did everything we've always done for like 90 some episodes, but
we had to do the same thing you did. We had to call her though the next day and say, I'm so sorry. And she was like so kind about it. Amazing. It happened to her as well as a newswoman. So
I think it happens to everyone once. Yeah. It has to.
I've had it happen. Yeah. I've been guesting people's shows and it happens all the time. Like, sure, it's not a big deal. The funny thing is that when Elizabeth said it, she was like, oh, we've had this happen before. She goes, one time we were with a photographer and we did a photo shoot all day and then they realized that they didn't put film in the camera. And she's like, now that was different. She goes, I was upset about that. And I was like, oh, thank God, this is just a half hour, 20-minute show. Right. But she's like, no, that was frustrating. And I was like, oh, thank you for being kind to me.
Yes.
So but it is, as a producer, just like you, I get how that is. You're like, oh my gosh.
Yes. So along with your radio, you are in production with a TV show.
Yes.
Can you tell us about that? And I'm curious how your acting skills have helped you in regards to that TV show.
Well, I'm acting right now. I'm just kidding. I'm totally kidding. I'm really like a mean person. I'm just kidding. It's funny because when I first started so I started on YouTube. For 6 months, I did a YouTube channel every single day because my goal when I started Lifeology back in 2015 was to have my television program. So like I said, for 6 months, every single day, I practiced being on camera again. I practiced my speech. If you see the first 3 months worth of 3-minute clips that I would do on YouTube. They are not inspiring. The content was great, but I'm like, hi, I'm James Miller. We simplify and transform your mind and spirit and body. And it was just so boring. Robotic. And I know. And I was like, and when I look back at it, I'm like, okay, James, that's a starting point. Because I was not like that when I was younger, because, you know, it was different. But just to like link together my brand, the psychological stuff and just the performance part, it took me a while to really get that. So now when I'm on radio, I'm not as, well, the other part is being a psychotherapist, you have to have a lot of boundaries. And so when I was with my patients, because I would interview people, and that's what therapy is essentially, I'm interviewing them, if you want to think of it that way, for many years. And so I've been in my field now for 25 years. I look really young. But but the point is I had to learn how to just be more, just have more boundary, or be, I don't say boundary less, but just allow my personality to come out. And so it came out quite a bit once I started with radio. And so now I can talk about myself, and whether people in my psychology world know about my show or not, I don't ever tell them about that, but I'm just much more free with this. So now when it comes to this particular or TV show, it's kind of like my radio show where I interview people about their life. But the premise of this show is, this is my little spiel. So loneliness and isolation are one of the major contributing factors of why people are dying early. And this is pre-COVID. So because of that, because of the divisiveness of the world, people just don't feel like they have anyone to connect with. So what my show does, LIFEOLOGY with James Miller, check your local listings. What that does is it really breaks down stereotypes. So I will pick one emotional construct that we've all experienced, because our life may be different, but the emotions we all experience are the same. So if I want to talk about an episode of grief, I will bring someone on who's experienced grief, but I don't say normalize it, but I generalize it in such a way that everybody who watches that particular episode will say, oh, this person I thought was so different, but they're not different. And so I have discussion points in ways in which I want the audience, and my goal is to have families and friends and coworkers, whomever, watch it together, to have the discussion points to say, tell me, what was grief, for example, what was grief like for you? So James talks about the 5 different stages of grief. How have they manifested for you before? So just things like that. So it's a lot of talking points, and I have amazing guests from all different walks of life that are, I don't want to say mainstream as far as how people would know them, but every different thing that you can think of is represented there. So I'm all about representation, inclusivity. It's so important to me. So you find all different people who have experienced something. So I have 13 different episodes right now, and that is what we're filming. So to answer your long-winded answer, to answer your question, as far as the acting, there's not really a lot of acting per se in this one. It's scripted to a degree. I mean, it's not scripted, it's scripted, but it's not scripted. Like my monologues will be scripted, but when it comes to the questions I ask, that won't be as scripted. They'll have concepts of where we're going to go, but I'm not going to tell them, you know, here's your script, read it.
Right.
However, I'm writing, I can't say what network I'm writing for, but I'm writing a screenplay. And so I'm going to see if I can write myself into that as one standing character. So then I'll be acting again. I'll be the actor. So, but that's really cool. I'm excited about that. But so that's a whole scripted one, but that's different than the current one that I'm working on, or that we're in pre-production for right now. Any day now we're going to be filming. It's been moved several times because of COVID. So I get to practice patience, and I do not like patience, but I get to practice it. So here we are.
That's exciting.
He's going to write himself in as a Spanish doctor into one of
I know.
plays, right?
But actually, as a doctor, I'm writing myself into the character, but I can't say anymore.
Last question.
I have a question. One question?
Yeah, last question, yes.
Okay. As a psychoanalyst, when you had a patient, did you ever accidentally yawn while they're talking, doze off, zone out, anything?
So there's a way, I'm leaning in like conspiratorially. Okay, so what happens is, if you don't want to yawn, what you do is you push right here between your eyebrows, and you push and you pull up. Okay. So when you do that, what it does is it slightly increases your sinus cavity, and it gives you more air, because the whole point of yawning is to have oxygen. So if I need to yawn, I would push and I'd pull, and I'm like, that's interesting. It's interesting. And so when you do that, all of a sudden I don't have to yawn. And so now I've told my little secret, but that's what I do any single time. So I've been on shows like this. If I all of a sudden have to yawn, I'm like, oh, interesting. But that is the way to not yawn, is to push down between your forehead and pull it up. So that is why do not yawn? I mean, you can't do it too long because you eventually will have to yawn, but it's a good little trick of the trade.
Okay, Steph, tonight over dinner, you cannot do that trick on me
I'm
as we're talking.
The whole time.
Like, oh my gosh, I'm boring you.
That's hysterical. That is hysterical.
Well, listeners, for more information about James, you can go to his Instagram page, James Miller LIFEOLOGY, or his website. Check out his website, which has a ton of prior episodes of his radio show archived there. It's jamesmillerlifeology.com/radio. And we will put all this information in our show notes. Well, James, seriously, thank you so much. I have been crying laughing on this end with the keynote speaking story. That is absolutely fantastic. So thank you.
It is my pleasure. Thank you both so much. I had a really fun time with you. So thank you for allowing me to be on your show today.